Amen. Well, welcome. Good morning, Grace City Church. My name is Kerry. I'm a deacon. I'm the brother of Josh. And yes, we are talking about brothers today, Jacob and Esau. It is very fitting. I'm excited for it. And I think it's going to be very good. So we're in Genesis chapter 27, so go ahead and turn there. You know it's coming, don't you, Mom? The older will serve the younger. This is going to be really good. I'm Josh's brother, by the way, just if you didn't know that. How could I not mention something about the older serving the younger when we're in a text like this? Genesis chapter 27. This is the story of Jacob and Esau. I'll give you a quick background of the story. Up to date until now. I'll catch you up for those of you who are new from 27 chapters of the book of Genesis. So Genesis begins with God creating everything out of nothing. He creates a place for His people, and God's presence is in His place upon His people. His people deny Him. They don't want anything to do with Him. They reject Him, so they are exiled out of the garden. God brings, He sends them out with a curse, but He also blesses them and said, through one of your seeds, through one of your descendants, there's going to be someone who comes who will be the Redeemer. And we're looking for that Redeemer through every character that comes in the Bible. Genesis tells the spiral, the degradation and the spiraling down and the decaying of the human race. Everything's a mess. And you come across the same stories over and over and over again. You come across messed up families. You come across messed up kids. You come across a lot of brothers, and brothers want to kill each other in the book of Genesis. Brothers don't fare well in the book of Genesis, just so you know. You got Cain and Abel, you got Jacob and Esau, you got Joseph and his brothers. Brothers never fare well in the book of Genesis. Genesis is spiraling down. Human depravity is just chaos, mayhem, and pandemonium. It's like reality TV shows. And if you ever want to feel good about your family, just read about the characters in the Bible and you'll be really encouraged because they're very messed up. Marriages are messed up, families are messed up, and it's the same story that we come here in chapter 27. So back up a little bit. God comes to Abraham and He says, I'm going to choose you to be a blessing to the rest of the nations, and through your descendants there will come one who will defeat and conquer Satan. And so you're always looking for this blessing that is being passed on to this next descendant. Okay, so Jacob has Isaac. Isaac marries Rebekah, and Isaac and Rebekah have these two brothers, and their names are Jacob and Esau, and they're twins, and they're in the womb. Even in the womb, they're struggling together. They're fighting one another. And Rebekah's going, what's going on? She asks the Lord, what's happening? And the Lord comes to her and He says, in your womb is two nations. And out of these nations are going to come two people groups. And the Lord says, before any of them were born, before either one of them had done good or bad, God says the older is going to serve the younger. So these brothers grow up, and mom and dad play favorites. Isaac has his favorite, Esau. Rebekah has her favorite, Jacob. And this is where we come to in Genesis chapter 27. And we're going to see here that's just messed up. Genesis chapter 27, verse 1. It says, when Isaac was old and his eyes were so weak that he could no longer see, just so you know, the eyes, there's a theology of eyes in the Bible. Okay, and it's significant when the author comes across and he says his eyes are weak. That's not just meaning physically, but it's also meaning spiritually. You remember back in the garden what got Eve into trouble? The fruit looked pleasing to her eye. That's what got us into this mess. Isaac is weak, and he ends up... And so I think it's a spiritual proclamation upon Isaac. His eyes are weak. Other people whose eyes are weak, Samuel's eyes are weak, and he doesn't see what his boys are doing in the temple. They're being sexually active. They're taking meat out of the sacrifices they're not supposed to. Remember Samson, his eyes got him into trouble. Remember with one of the women? Some of the women, a lot of the women. Eyes are especially trouble get men in trouble a lot. And what ends up happening is God ends up doing Samson a favor. That he ends up taking his eyes out. And it's not until Samson's eyes are taken out that he can then actually begin to see. And then you get to Jesus. Remember what Jesus comes along and does? Jesus is constantly coming along, and he's healing people's eyes so that they can see, and he's telling people who think they can see that they're actually blind. This was a theology of eyes going on here. So it's not. This is with intent that the author is telling us that Isaac's eyes are weak. It's going to tells you something about his spiritual condition. So here's what happened. Isaac is old. He's dying. He's about 137 years old this time. Parts are flying out. Oil's leaking everywhere. He's getting old. He realizes his day of death is near, and so he calls Esau in, his favorite, the firstborn, and he wants to bless him. Now, in the story so far, who's been told will get the blessing? Who will get the blessing? That's good. Jacob, Esau. Okay, you're both right. But Jacob was told that he's going to get the blessing. It says the older will serve the younger. Okay, so he invites him in. He invites Esau in, his favorite firstborn. He says, "Go out and prepare me some game. Give me some food that I like, some tasty food. Bring it back here, and I'll give you the blessing." Rebekah overhears it. And this isn't the word that's used here isn't just like just happened to hear it. The word's used here is like this is kind of a pattern and habit of Rebekah. She's kind of eavesdropping. It's hard to keep quiet when in tents. They don't have a whole lot of insulation. So she overhears that Isaac is blessing Esau, and so she says, "Hey, Jacob." She talks to her favorite son. She says, "Hey, Jacob, come here. Okay, here's what I want you to do. I want you to go out, get a lamb, and kill it, bring it back in here. I'll prepare it the way your father likes it, and then you go in, and then you end up taking the blessing." And it's interesting that Jacob's response here isn't on moral grounds, it's on pragmatics. Like, well, I don't think this is going to work. I mean, Esau is hairy. He's like a Wookiee. I'm smooth. I'm skin. His voice is probably lower. I'm going to have to lower mine a little bit. So, and then Jacob says, what if he finds out? Then what are we going to do? And Rebekah says something that's actually quite chilling. She says, "Let the curse end up falling on me." So Jacob goes through with the plan. He goes through and he comes in, and Isaac's a little surprised that he got it done so quickly. They killed this animal. And Isaac says, who are you? And Jacob says, "I'm Esau, your firstborn." And Isaac is having a hard time believing him, so he needs to smell him. He finally smells him, and he says, "Okay, now I'll bless you." And what he ends up doing, in verse 27, he says, "Ah, the smell of my son is like the smell of a field that the Lord has blessed. May God give you heaven's dew and the earth's richness, an abundance of grain and new wine." And here's the centerpiece of the song, verse 29. He says, "May nations serve you and peoples bow down to you." So this is obvious that Jacob is now receiving the blessing of the firstborn and the promise of the line of the descendants that is going to come through him. It says, "Be Lord over your brothers, and may the sons of your mother bow down to you. May those who curse you be cursed, and may those who bless you be blessed." Obviously evoking back to the promise given to Abraham. And the scene is very intense. So you have this scene where Jacob is leaving, and as he leaves, in comes Esau. It's like this really, it's like awkward moment. Like, "I'll bet I know where you're going in there for." It's not there. So Esau goes in, and he says, "Father, I'm here. I got the food." And Isaac says, "Who are you?" He says, "I'm Esau, your firstborn." Isaac begins trembling violently, and he realizes finally that Jacob has stolen the blessing. And Esau seeks the blessing with tears. He weeps, and he goes around, and he says, "Father, do you not have a blessing for me? Please bless me. Please bless me. Don't you have some blessing left for me?" And his father says, "How can I? I've already made him Lord over you." I've sustained him with grain and wine. Esau says, don't you have anything left over for me? He says in verse 39, Isaac says, your dwelling will be away from earth's riches, away from the dew of heaven. You will live by the sword, and you will serve your brother. When you grow restless, you will throw his yoke from off your neck. Gee, thanks, Dad. Okay, so obviously what you have here is you have a family that is very messed up. And you have two brothers who are wrestling with each other, trying to get the blessing of their father that ultimately will come through God. Jacob, I think, is a very believable character for us to relate to. Believable for modern man to relate to. He has more failures, more struggles, more obstacles, more doubts, more mistakes than almost any other character in the Bible. So what we're going to learn is that the Bible isn't full of good and bad characters. The Bible isn't a story about the blessed good, but rather of the blessed bad. The story's not about good guys and bad guys. The story is really about one good guy named Jesus who lays down his life for all the bad guys. It's not how good the redeemed are, it's how good the Redeemer is. And we're constantly going to see God's intervening, rescuing grace coming upon people who don't deserve it, who don't seek it, and don't appreciate it even when they've been saved by it. Now, I'm going to take a little bit of a different approach, and we're going to particularly zoom in on the idea of blessing here. We're going to look at because we've already talked about, in Genesis 25, we've already talked about God's choosing Jacob over Esau. So I'm going to take zoom in a little bit on the aspect of blessing, the aspect of blessing in people's lives, and the struggle that these brothers have to seek the blessing of someone significant in their lives. So we're going to look at three different things. We're going to look at the power of blessing. We're going to look at our deep need for blessing. We're going to look at how we seek to get blessing and why it usually doesn't work. And finally, we're going to look at how the gospel actually brings blessing. Any firstborns here? Just raise your hand. You're usually allowed. Come on. Firstborns here. All right, let's hear it for the firstborns. All right, there you go. Any secondborns here? All right, about half and half. There we go. In the story so far, you've probably noticed a pattern of the firstborns, right? There's significance of the firstborn coming into play here. However, it's strange because while the firstborn is becoming prominent, who ends up getting blessed? The secondborn. There's patterns in here. I have this clicker. I think it'll work. We'll see how it goes. So blessings in the firstborn. Here's what you see. And just let me say this first of all. The promise was going to usually come through the firstborn. And we even see the prominence of the firstborn even today. We have cultural stipulations on the firstborn. The firstborn, the firstborn son, to take the name of the family, to carry on the family heritage. You get a sense of pride when you have your firstborn son. It was even more prominent in biblical times because the firstborn son was the one who was actually going to carry on the family name. He was your life insurance. He brought blessing. He was your inheritance. He took care of you in your old age. He took over the family wealth. He established you. He carried on the family traditions. So to have a firstborn son is very significant, and you have to have the firstborn son, or you just can't survive. So there's the prominence of the firstborn son arises in the Bible. But the interesting thing is you see is that the firstborn, you have a firstborn, but the blessing doesn't go to the firstborn. You have Cain, but Abel is blessed. And then later on Seth, even his younger brother. You have Ishmael, and yet Isaac is the one who's blessed. You have Esau and Jacob, But Jacob is the one who's blessed, while Esau is the firstborn. And again, later on with the rest of Jacob's sons, you have Reuben as the firstborn, but Judah is the one that the promised seed is going to come through. And on and on throughout the Bible. David was not the firstborn. David was the seventh born. And on it goes. And actually, it continues because you have Pastor Josh, you have myself. And really, that's the entire point of my sermon. So, yeah. I really don't have any other points. This is it. Okay, so what's going on here? Okay, I think two things emerge. Two things emerge from this. First of all, you see that there is no qualified firstborn. And for that matter, there is no qualified secondborn. You have a need for a greater firstborn. All the firstborns are squandering their inheritance. They're selling their birthrights. They're leaving their family. They're bringing shame to the family. There is a need for a better firstborn. Secondly, I think the second thing that it points out is like, while the firstborn is not blessed, the secondborn is blessed, is the truth that God uses weak people. He's not using the norm. By not blessing the firstborn, God is showing the folly of human wisdom, saying that the oldest, the strongest, the most appealing, the most skillful will be the one that he uses to accomplish his purposes. That's a theme and a pattern that you see throughout. All the characters in the Bible do not have any skill or prowess or knowledge. God comes to them and he says, I'm going to use you, because when he uses them, he ends up getting all the glory. All right, now, so to introduce you to these two brothers, Jacob and Esau, they are as different as you can get. Right? Esau he's hairy, he grows a beard, he's like dudes here in Wenatchee. Okay, he wears Carhartts, he knows how to run a chainsaw, he likes football, he likes outdoors, gets his buck every year. That's Esau. Okay, Jacob, I kind of picture him like a Duck Dynasty guy. You know, like Jace Robertson or something. Okay, Jacob smells like potpourri. Okay? He sticks near the home. He likes to cook. His mother likes him the most. They're completely opposite. Now, I could not help but think of Josh and I when you're talking about two brothers. I mean, so if Josh were to come up here and stand next to me, there would be zero similarities. We are totally opposite in looks, in personality. It's obvious. You stand them up here, it'd be two different people. You got short, you got tall, you got light, you got dark, you got more reserved personality, you got outgoing personality, you got good looking, you got, and on and on. I mean, just fill in the blanks, right? You know where this is going. Josh is gone. We're talking about two brothers. How can I not go here? People have actually wondered if we're actually biologically related. That's how different we are. So we have two brothers here who are desperately seeking the blessing of God from their father. Both of them desperately want it, and neither of them deserve it. And so what is God going to do? Neither of them are very good choices. It's like picking between two people on the Bachelor series. It's like neither of them are good choices. You got option A, option B, and neither of them are going to work. But God, in keeping his record of faithfulness, chooses one not on the basis of anything that he's done, but on the basis of his grace and mercy. So we're going to zoom in on the blessings here, and we're going to talk about the aspect of how blessing functions in our life and how all of us, you and me, need the blessing and affirmation of someone important to us. So I think this text teaches us three things: the power of blessing, our deep need for blessing, how we seek to get the blessing, and why it doesn't work. Okay, so first, let's look at the power of blessing. Now, the first thing that we're faced with when we come to this is obviously we don't understand. I forgot I was running this. We don't understand this word blessing. When we think of blessing, we think of like when someone sneezes, we say, God bless you, or boy, you just really blessed me. You really blessed my heart. This word going on here, this notion of blessing is someone looking deep into a person and who's speaking words that will actually shape their future outcome. Right? Isaac is looking into his boys and he is seeing something in them that is actually going to put them on a trajectory in life that are completely different. Jacob's going to be blessed, Esau is going to be cursed. And one of the questions that you ask when you first read this is, why doesn't Isaac call Jacob back in, Esau back in, and just reverse it? Have you thought about that? Like, why doesn't he just call him back in and say to Jacob, you fraud, you crook, you dressed up like somebody else. What are you doing? I take everything back. I didn't mean it. I cancel it. And Esau, here's the blessing that I give to you. But when you read the narrative, obviously they don't think they can take it back. The blessing can't be taken back. Isaac says to Esau, he says, I've already given him everything, and I have nothing left for you. Obviously, these words that Isaac has spoken to his sons can't be taken back. It's this blessing and it's this pronunciation upon a person's life that actually shapes the trajectory of their life. It actually shapes who they are. It actually shapes what they're actually going to do. And your first thoughts are, well, maybe that's weird. Maybe these people are just superstitious or something. But no. You know it. I know it. Counselors know it. Therapists know it. Psychologists will tell you that you cannot underestimate the power of significant people speaking significant words to you at significant events or moments in your life. You cannot take those words back, can you? Once you've said those words will shape you and will operate in your life and will place you on a trajectory that you will be going. Words that parents speak to children. There's a really stupid saying that goes, "Sticks and stones may break my bones, but words may never hurt me." The person who wrote that was a moron. If I were to shape it a little bit more around biblical terms, I'd say this: sticks and stones may break my bones, but words can actually pierce, break, and shape my very soul. You know that even offhanded comments that have been made to you through the years, words of affirmation and blessing or criticism and cursing, are still operating in your life. They're still there. They're still functioning. They're still shaping who you are and what you do, especially the words of a parent to a child, especially at a deathbed scene. They're programming your self-appreciation or your lack thereof. Words pass into you and shape who you are. You know what it's like. I'll bet every single one of you can remember a comment right now of affirmation that you received. Words that shaped you, either from a coach or from a parent, from a boss, from someone you looked up to. I'll bet every single one of you right now could think of a comment of criticism that you've received that has shaped you, that are still operating in your life even right now. They're speaking to you. They're forming habits in your life. They're shaping who you are. If you've ever been blessed or if you've ever been cursed, you'll never forget it. Words spoken to you, especially by parents, define who you are and operate throughout your entire lifetime. A good friend of mine here at GCC went into the Army. He was young. He had a strange relationship with his father. He actually dropped out of high school because of what his father had said to him. He had never gotten his father's approval. He went into the army, took the preliminary test, the requisites, the placement test that puts you where you are to go. Took the test and literally scored off the charts. And the army recruiters came to him. They said, look, you can do whatever you want. Write your own ticket. You can be a doctor. You can fly planes. You can be a sniper. You can do whatever you want. You can work for the government if you want to. He took the news back to his dad. He said to his dad, "Hey, Dad," he said, the army said I could be a doctor if I wanted to. His dad looked at him and he said, "Well, now, maybe you'll finally amount to something." You can't underestimate the power of words spoken by significant people at significant events in your life. So that's the power of blessing. Secondly, we learn from this our deep need for blessing. One of the things we learn is that we deeply need this kind of a blessing. Right? Our lives are distorted without it, that we're going to be unsettled without it, and we're going to wrestle through life unless we do get the blessing. You can't help but desire to be blessed. You and I are hardwired to seek blessing in and every way, and will seek it even at the cost or at the expense of someone else. Here's a fact. This craving, this desire, this need can't be met by any other human being in the world. And it can't be met by you, though you will try. Think about it. You can't validate you. Doesn't matter who you are. You can't say to you, me? This is getting weird. You can't say to you, me. Okay, you can't say to yourself, self? Everyone thinks I'm stupid, but I think I'm smart. It just doesn't work. Try it. It just doesn't work. You can't validate you. You need someone from without to place validation upon you, to actually give you a blessing. I think about Robin Williams, the late comedian, actor. Everyone adored him. And at a moment he could have if he wanted to, he could have asked the world, "Do you love me?" And we would have all responded, "Yes, we love you." And yet that wasn't enough. Because the blessing of the world, the blessing of significant people, while it shapes you, it cannot change you for good. It will change you, but it'll be a distorted picture. You and I both want this blessing of the firstborn. We desire it, we seek it, we want it. We deceive for it. We cheat for it. And if anyone gets in our way, we will manipulate. We will lie and do anything we can to receive blessing from someone. And this struggle of blessing is a theme that's going to run throughout Jacob's life. Right? And it ends at the climactic scene where he's in the dark and he's wrestling with this strange figure. Ends up, he's wrestling with God. And at the end, remember what happens? He says, "I will not let you go until you finally bless me." And at that moment, God ends up changing Jacob's name to Israel, which means what? One who struggles with God. And that's the entire story of the Bible. You have a people that God is determined to bless, and yet they want to receive the blessing by everyone else, by other gods. And so they seek other nations. They seek other gods. They worship created things rather than the Creator. And yet God's unhindered, unswerving grace is going to come upon them and bless them even when they don't think they need it. And even when they don't deserve it. So we see the power of blessing, our deep need for blessing. Third, how we seek to get this blessing and why it doesn't work. Jacob is a frightening picture of you and I. To get blessing, Jacob couldn't be himself. He had to dress up. The most ironic thing about this story is that Jacob sought to get that which he already possessed. Right? He was already the one promised. He already had the blessing. It was given to him. The older will serve the younger. And yet, to get his father's blessing, he had to dress up to be like somebody else. I would like to suggest to you that that's what you and I do. You and I are just like Jacob. How do you get blessing from others? How are you getting the thing you really need? Let me suggest this is what we do. We end up hiding. We don't let people see who we really are. Like Jacob, we dress up and pretend to be people we're not in order that people might bless us. Like Esau, we go around like insecure children saying, "Bless me too, please, bless me." That's what we do. We dress up like other people. We ask the world, "Please bless us." We ask it from a job. We ask it from a relationship. We ask it from a spouse. We ask it from a parent. We ask it from our children. We ask it from a boss. We ask a coach to do it. We ask our children to do it. We ask an income to do it. We ask a house to do it. We go all over creation, searching for something to bless us, to give us validation. I should mention this. We do it in our gospel communities too. Right? We go and we pretend that everything's okay, so we end up dressing up like good Christians. Sure, we might admit here and there that we struggle with anxiety and a little bit of fear, but not too much because we don't want the people to think we're a basket case. But we'll let people know that we do struggle at times, but most of the time we end up dressing up to look better than we really are. Do you know pastors do this as well? I think pastors are probably some of the most insecure people. They die 1,000 deaths on the stage. And so they're so insecure about who they are and being helpful and practical and spiritual and theological and funny, and they ask the congregation to do what they can never do. They seek the blessing of the congregation, hoping that the congregation will bless them and affirm them and say that they're okay. Did you know that pastors have nightmares about Sunday morning? Pastors dream that we show up here and we're preaching in our underwear. I'm dead serious. We're backstage, we're in our underwear, everyone's like going around, they don't seem to be noticing us. We're like, "Can you give me some pants, please? I don't have any pants." We're like, "No." Like you come out here and you have to preach in your underwear. It's really embarrassing. We dream we wake up Sunday morning, or we think it's another day and we realize we have a half an hour to go and we haven't even prepared. We're so fearful of what people might think. You know, that's you and I. We're seeking blessing horizontally from other people. Here's a sad thing. When Jacob heard the words of his father, the look on Isaac's face that he'd always longed to see, and he got so close to actually hearing his father's blessing of him. But here's the thing, he realized that his father wasn't blessing him. Why? Because he had dressed up like somebody else. Jacob knew his father wasn't blessing him. And it must have been incredibly disappointing to get so close to your father's love and realizing that it's you he's not blessing. When you have to hide your sin, you have to hide your flaws, hide who you really are, all the compliments in the world will not change you. And how do you feel when you're done? You feel like a complete and absolute fraud. And lastly, How does the gospel bring blessing? Jacob is probably one of the weirdest characters God could have chose to bless. He is the most opaque, insecure, fragile piece of work that God could have chose to bless. But here's the thing, God is coming and blessing the most screwed up people. God brings his scandalous, intervening grace into the lives of people who don't seek it, who don't deserve it, who continually resist it, and who don't appreciate it even after they've been saved by it. You and I go around dressing up like other people, hoping that someone will bless us. But here's what Jesus does. Jesus dressed up like us. He put on our sin. He put on our shame. He put on our guilt. He put on our condemnation. And he became like you and I. And in doing so, what he ended up doing, he gave up the right of the firstborn in order that we might be blessed through the curse that he received. You see, in a lot of ways, Jesus ends up being the better Jacob, and he ends up taking the curse of Esau. You and I daily get up and pretend to be other people, and we dress up to be like other people, hoping that we will be granted the affection and the affirmation and the blessing of the world. And all along, what we really are longing for and what will only satisfy us is the pronunciation of our Heavenly Father that you are righteous. You are okay. You're holy. You're pure. You're sanctified. You're loved. You're deeply cherished. And now here's the thing. Jesus is the better firstborn, and we are now in him. And so we get now the blessing of the firstborn. Even if you're secondborn, or third, or fourth, or 10th, it doesn't matter. All who are in Jesus get the blessing of the firstborn, the blessing that you've desired your entire life, the blessing that you've wanted. And now everything that's said about Jesus is now said about you. Well done, good and faithful servant. This is my Son, whom I am well pleased. The Father said that about Jesus, and now he says that about you. Jesus left the blessing of the firstborn behind when he came to earth. And what is he doing on the cross? He's praying, right? And what does he say? He says, my God, my God. This is the first time that Jesus hasn't addressed God as Father. He's always praying to him as his Father. He says, my God, why have you forsaken me? Now, why does he say this? Because on the cross, he lost the firstborn's blessing. Jesus dressed up like us and got the curse that we deserved. So that when we believe in Jesus Christ, get this, we are now clothed in him. God now accepts me as if I've done everything Jesus had done, because Jesus was treated as if everything I had done, he had done. It's called the Great Exchange. His righteousness for your unrighteousness, his obedience for your disobedience, his purity for your dirtiness, his holiness for your filth. And think about that. Then it goes the other way. Your filth was put on him. Your unrighteousness was put on him. Your disobedience was put on him. He dressed up like you. He took the curse that you and I deserved in order that we might now receive the blessing of the firstborn, in order that we might now be invited into his family. We are now treated as if we are the firstborn. Is that good news? We're not treated like our sins deserved, past, present, or future. We are treated now as the Son of the living God. You no longer need to dress up like somebody else and seek the blessing of other people. You now have the blessing of the Father. And guess what? You're going to need to be reminded of that every day. You're going to need to be reminded of the empowering, rescuing grace, and that you need that every single day. There's not a day that goes by that you don't need to be reminded that God dressed up like I did, like I was. And He took upon Himself what I deserved. And now He has given me what I don't deserve, and that's called grace. Let's pray.